Hey, I'm Ben Mitten, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I want to give an argument for the existence of God based upon morality. And now, when I say an argument, what I'm not going to do is give a syllogism. That is a strict structure of an argument that has premises that leads to a conclusion. You may be able to find arguments like that on other channels. For example, Reasonable Faith, maybe Inspiring Philosophy, or other channels like that. What I'm going to do is just give an argument like I would give it on the street or across the coffee table or with family or friends or something like that. That's the way that I'm going to cash this out, because I think that's maybe more useful to you. You're not going to find yourself in many situations where you're going to be giving sort of an academic lecture on morality. And so here's something that maybe you can use a little bit more in your discussions with other people. And maybe you're a skeptic watching today, and hopefully this sort of way of explaining the argument helps you understand more thoroughly what the theist is saying. And so here's the argument. Number one is that I'm going to be giving the moral argument. And so that goes from recognizing, first off, that we all do intuitively recognize that we live in a world in which there are moral truths or moral facts about the matter. And so when I say moral facts, what I mean by that is truths about the world that have a moral dimension to them. And so let me explain what I mean by morals. And so by morals, I mean values that we give certain things and obligations or prohibitions that we recognize in the world. And so by values, what I mean is that we attribute to things different kinds of worth. And so, for example, I believe that a human has more worth or value than a toothpick. Right? We would use a toothpick to pick food out of our teeth, but we would never do that with a human. Okay, as crazy as that sounds, we can break toothpicks, but we would say if you break their leg, that is something totally different than breaking a toothpick. Why? Because we assign value or worth to human beings. The other one that I mentioned is prohibition and obligations. We recognize those types of things. Like it is wrong to steal for fun. A person ought not steal for fun. We recognize that as a wrong or an obligation. If you see someone who is drowning in a pool and you can swim, you should jump in and save them, okay, without other overriding factors present. Now, humans intuitively recognize these moral truths. What I mean by intuitively recognize is that these moral facts seem to impose themselves on us rather than being reasoned to. Okay, we generally don't, at every moral encounter, sit back in an armchair and reason through that. It's almost as if we're grabbed by these moral intuitions, and we don't need to reason through it. We just recognize it as true. And so we call those basic intuitions. It's kind of like our intuition that yesterday exists in our memory. Or it's kind of like we intuitively assume that the external world exists. And so I'm not having a dream right now. I'm actually in a room with books on the shelf and a cool lava lamp behind me, by the way. That is something that I'm assuming I intuitively know to be true, not something that I reason toward. And so uh, moral facts exist intuitively the same way that memory facts or the external world exist intuitively. It's not something that we reason to, it's something that we just know instinctively. And since there's no reason to doubt that my memory of yesterday is true, that yesterday actually happened, it occurred, and I have no reason to doubt that the external world exists, then I have no reason to doubt that my moral intuitions are equally real and binding about the world that I live in. Now, if you're still with me, hang in there. That this moral awareness calls out for a justification. What do I mean by a justification? What I mean is something that which grounds those moral intuitions beyond myself. Okay, so if I believe that stealing for fun is wrong, that's all great and well, but what actually makes it true that stealing for fun is wrong? What grounds that? What makes it a fact about reality that stealing for fun is wrong? The problem with the atheist when it comes to that question, or atheism, is that it offers no good explanation for the truth of moral claims. In other words, if atheism is true, there is no good reason to think that my moral intuition, this thing that I know to be true, is actually true of the world that we live in. So atheism offers no good reason to think that the moral intuitions that we know are true have any grounding. And so we're left in this place where we know something's right, we know something's wrong, but then asking the question, why is it wrong or right? We know that humans have moral value and worth, but why do they have worth and value? Atheism offers no explanation for that. And so, from an atheist worldview, an atheist perspective on reality, these moral intuitions, these moral facts that we recognize are empty. Whenever a person would ask them, why save the drowning person? Even if you think it's right, the person from an atheist worldview could say, so what? What makes it right? Whenever we say that you should treat humans with value and dignity, an atheist worldview would say, why? What actually makes humans worth more than a toothpick? From an atheist worldview, there is nothing that seems to make something more valuable than anything else. What grounds that? And whenever I hear someone say, well, yeah, but we just know because, and they list out something like intelligence and moral awareness or something like that, that just begs the question, what makes intelligence worth more? What gives that value? What gives moral awareness more value or worth? That's just arbitrary. So, while atheism offers no good justification for value claims and obligations and prohibitions, so if atheism lacks the ability as a system, as a worldview, to explain what gives a sufficient justification for moral values and moral duties, that is, prohibitions and obligations, if atheism fails to give a justification for that, then it fails as a world view. It doesn't have the explanatory power or scope to make sense of moral realities. And so that's where theism comes in as a superior world and life view. Theism, given God as the ultimate source of goodness, has a great ability to make sense of a moral universe. And so the very fact that we recognize moral facts about life and about the world suggests to us a being who has endowed us in the creation with a moral reality, a moral dimension. And so morality makes the most sense on a theistic worldview, not an atheistic worldview. And so I know I said I wasn't going to give a syllogism, and I don't think that I did, but I tried to walk you through the argument one step at a time. And so just to kind of summarize this in some steps for you, it would be that, number one, we recognize that moral values and duties exist. Number two, atheism offers no good explanation for these moral values and duties. It lacks the explanatory power and scope as a worldview to make sense of the justification of moral values and duties. Number three, moral values and duties fit nicely with a theistic worldview in which God exists as a justification or a grounding for moral values and duties. Therefore, God exists. And so that is a way that you can cash out this argument. Now, what's so powerful about this argument is its ability to be used in different ways very easily. What do I mean by that? I mean that the moral argument can be so powerful because people make moral choices every day, all day. Take, for example, sometimes whenever people bring up the problem of evil and suffering. Well, the problem of evil and suffering only works as a valid argument if there is something that's truly evil. And so at that point, we go back to our argument. Well, how do we explain the existence of real evil in the world? Atheism can't afford to explain that. It doesn't have the power or scope as a worldview to explain the existence of true evil. And so God is the only way that we can actually call something evil, because in a theistic worldview, that's the only way that we can make sense of moral facts at all. And so the problem of evil actually supports a theistic worldview, not the other way around. So I hope that blessed you today. I hope that makes sense as an argument, or maybe a conversational argument, if you will. I wanted to put something out there that maybe someone can use in a conversation with somebody else, and not just in like a presentation format. Check me out next week. There'll be an argument for the resurrection coming out next week on my channel. So I hope you have a blessed day.